Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In Monster Strike, let's continue our look at the best non-limited Hatcher monsters, and then today we'll look at the wood element. And then I'm making this video in preparation for the 6th anniversary, because there might be some Hatchers coming soon, where we can select characters. I think in most cases we want to go for the limited characters, but if they don't appear, we'll have to think of other options, so that's what these videos are for. If there's some kind of thing where selecting characters is not a thing, these lists could maybe still be helpful to get a zoomed out view of where the state of the game is. And then in making all of these lists for the different elements, I thought wood was one of the stronger. You can actually kind of pick, almost any of them, and they're all pretty good. But I'm just going to talk about maybe a dozen here. And then there's no particular order, but as we get further into the list, the more I like the characters. Okay, first one we want to look at is Betelgeuse, and then the evolution is a Pierce with Null Warp, and then a Water Slayer. And then the Water Slayer is passive, so this will work with command strike shots, and then also his bump combo. And bump combo is pretty strong too, it's the spread bomb. And then you don't see this too often on Pierce characters, but this is nice for them because Pierce characters often end up next to enemies because they lose a lot of speed as they do that. And then he also has a speed and power up strike shot, and then he picks up the Slayer for the first enemy he hits. So yeah, lots of damage from his physical attacks. And then the Ascension, which I'm not as excited about, but he's good for the Kinky. He's Pierce with a Minesweeper null damage wall, and then the status recovery. He has the piercing 5 shot, which is pretty good. And then looks like a defense down blast. This is okay. It'll get the same defense down bonus from being the sub bump combo. But with the recent addition of the super defense down blast, this old one's not looking so good. Okay, so that was Betelgeuse. Okay, next is a personal favorite, and that is Nibirengen. This might be surprising. A lot of people kind of use her as the example of an underwhelming transcendent form, but I really like her. She's a Pierce with the null gravity barrier and null damage wall. That's a pretty rare double null ability for that sling style type, and then her element as well. And then the bump combo is okay. It's the rebounding chevrons and then the recovery shot. She has a delay strike shot, which is always helpful like in every quest. So yeah, she's not too flashy, but she's very solid. She's good for 22, I think, of the Kinky. But in most cases where you would use Uriel, I think you could put Nibirengen in there just fine, and you wouldn't lose too much. So maybe low priority, but if you do pick her up, not a bad idea at all. Okay, next up, this was one of the first new event Hatcher monsters to come out as a transcendent form, and that is the Grim siblings. But they are balanced with the Super Null Warp and Magic Circle boost, so very rare double null. And then they are a blast type, and then they have a crazy bump combo combination, the follow-up piercer and the plasma. And then, yeah, they are the blast type, they have the transcendent form, so they have the full power to each of those. So yeah, places where you can take advantage of their bump combos, they're going to be very, very powerful. They're a little bit lower in this list, just because I don't really like those bump combos, the way that they play. They don't fit my play style. But I have used them. I've used them in Yamato Takeru Kai, where bump combos are not supposed to do damage, but they still do great damage even in there. So they're pretty good. Okay, next is an older character. This is Orpheus. Evolution is a bounce with the Minesweeper L and Null Block. That's a versatile double null. The Null Block lets him go to Armageddon, and then those two abilities together make him good for the Kinky. 18, I think? That's kind of a difficult quest. No, Kinky 17. He also has the rebounding chevron, which is not great. And then he can give your characters, with his strike shot, the barrier to protect against attacks. So pretty useful. He's kind of the moment. And then the Ascension is another Pierce Slayer, the Water Slayer, and then Minesweeper M. So yeah, these kind of elemental Slayer characters are kind of evergreen. So you'll get use out of this guy for sure. And then he has the speed up bump combo, which is nice. So maybe you want to pair him with a character with a blast bump combo, so he can take advantage of it himself. Okay, next up is Kuhuning. She's one of the older transcendent forms for wood, but still very powerful. Pierce with Minesweeper EL, that's insane. That's attack times 3 with mines. And then null gravity barrier and no gauge, so she's pretty easy to use. Bump combo is pretty good. It's the piercing homing shot 12, and then the attack up, and then the strike shot. It's a null everything, and then really raises her stats. I never really liked this as her evolution form because the turn count was so high. You couldn't really use it as like a null gimmick strike shot. You just use it for the multiplier, which is super high. But at 12 turns, it's almost usable as a null everything strike shot. But in most cases when you use her, I would just ignore the null everything aspect of it and just focus on the speed and power up. So yeah, pretty solid. Okay, next up is a character I wish I had, and that is Bedivere. And he's so good, both of his versions, that it makes me angry that I don't have him. But the evolution is a null warp, null wind, and then speed up bump combo. And then he has a strike shot 8 turns where he becomes a pierce, and then hits the wall and then becomes a bounce. So yeah, situationally very powerful. He's really good for Karuna. And then anybody good for Karuna I can recommend, because then you can use Karuna to get Shooting Gada, one of the best max lucks in the game. So very, very good. And then the Ascension is also good. Pierce, Minesweeper, Null Block. That Kinky 17 that I just talked about, he's also really, really good in there. And I'd like him for that. Okay, next up is maybe kind of an underrated character, and that is Deneb, Transcendent. He is a bounce with null damage while null block. That's already a pretty special double null ability. But then he has a 4-turn becomes a pure strike shot, so that makes him super duper versatile. So you can go to quests where you can use either bounce or pierce characters, so that's very nice. And bump combo is pretty strong too. It's the twin laser, which can do good concentrated damage if you do a real shallow angle on him, and then a blast bump combo, so yeah. And very cool artwork. He's very androgynous, which fits his character. Okay, next, let's look at one of the newer characters, and that is Shakespeare. And I really, really like this guy. I liked him before as just a pre-transcendent form, but as a transcendent form, he's even better. But he's a bounce Minesweeper with Null Warp. That's still a pretty rare double null ability for wood. And then he has the Demon Slayer M, and there's lots of demons all over. And then it's passive, so it'll go into his bump combo. And then the bump combo, he also has the Spread Piercing 5, and then the Yo-Yo Don. I think a lot of people were kind of surprised that he lost the twin vertical laser. But the Yo-Yo Don and then the Spread are also really good, so I don't mind that too much. And then he's got a really unique strike shot where he gets a speed and power up, and then when he stops moving, he collects all of your teammates to that area. This can be good or bad. It can be bad because if you have attacks coming from the enemy that will overlap, that can mean like a one-hit KO on your team. But you can improve your positioning, or you can get your other guys out of bad positioning. You can set up strike shots like Valkyrie or the new complex, where you want to hit teammates before you hit an enemy. So you could be interesting for that. And then one thing that's kind of lost is that his second tier of his strike shot, I think the multiplier is like ×2 or maybe ×3. So yeah, you can use it very, very effectively as a speed and power up. So Shakespeare, really, really like this guy. Okay, another new transcendent form is Mammon. This guy's pretty darn good as he is. He's a bounce with a null gravity barrier flight, and then the new null speed down wall. And then he is a power type, but his bump combo is very, very strong. He's got the super flare, and then that's the same strength as One for All, or All Might. So if you've used him, you know that that's pretty strong. He also has the super defense down blast. That will work in tandem with the super flare, so it'll add some damage itself, and then also lower the defense, and then add the amount of damage that you get from the bump combo. So yeah, pretty powerful bump combo for a power type. And then Mammon is really an example of like interesting power types that have been released lately. There's also like Takemi Kazuchi and stuff. But yeah, power types for a long time were kind of the least popular characters in Monster Strike. But they've been doing some inventive things with the design, so they're still very competitive now. And then Mammon also, he has the becomes a pierce and then turns into a bounce once he hits a wall. So yeah, pretty powerful. Really, really like this guy. Okay, and then we are going to look at Corsair. And then she's so good that I was talking about her in other Element videos. But she's a bounce with flight and super null gravity barrier. Any character with super null gravity barrier is already good. It's just a super good ability. And then she has that magic combo of the command strike shot plus the speed up. Those are great support abilities, great abilities to raise your damage per turn. And then she's so good that people use her in Laudera, even though she doesn't have no warp, just because her speed up and then her command strike shot are so useful. And then her other bump combo, the 18 piercing homing shot, is also pretty strong. So yeah, kind of in every way, she's really good. Okay, next up is Belphegor, and then she's kind of the prototype for the bounce single null ability with the Elemental Slayer. But she's got null warp and then the water slayer. And yeah, I'm sure if you've used her, you know how strong she is. But even with the element slayer, she has very high attack. And then bump combos are good too. One-way laser EL and then the super homing 12. So yeah, another character that's pretty strong. Strike shot is interesting. It's a speed and power and then erases laser barriers. So that can be a little bit of extra damage from her bump combo. Okay, and then finally, the character that I'm most excited about now from Wood is Ancilium. And I was really happy to pull him recently. I got the other two characters from this banner, but I was very lucky to get him last, so he's very cool. And I think people are kind of sleeping on him. He's really good for that Colossal Quest on Amitama, but people don't really think of him outside of that. But he's super duper good. And then the character that I'm going to compare him to is Takemi Kazuchi, and that's just for the strike shot. Very low turn count, 12 plus 8, but becomes a pierce, and then like does super duper damage on the first target that it hits. That's similar to Namiaru. So yeah, slows down a lot, maybe 1, maybe 2 hits, but great damage. And if you've used Takemi Kazuchi, you know you can skip gauges with the strike shot, it's that strong. Takemi Kazuchi, he's got the null block and null warp. Ancilium here, he has the super null damage wall and the flight. So they cover very different null gimmicks, so you can use them, you know, in different places if you want to take advantage of that strike shot. And then he also has the Demon and the Monster Slayer M, so that's even more damage there. And then his bump combo is also really good. He's got the Cross Stinger, which at even as a power type, it's still pretty strong. And then if you add the Mancer or Demon Slayer M to that, that's double the damage. So that's even more than like Komachi, I think. But yeah, I'm super excited about this guy. I want to give him some Able Berries. I want to give him the Strike Haste, and then maybe Kin Strength, and then Sidekick. Yeah, just everything is good about him. Almost any Able Berry would be good for him. But yeah, Ancilium, he is one of the new event monsters that comes out as a Transcendent form. And I said this in the other video, but you could pull almost any of those and they'll all be good. There's no duds. So here's Kusahime. And then here is Oscar, also really good. So if you get any of those new Transcendent forms, I don't think you can go wrong with choosing them. Okay, so that is a look at the Wood monsters. This video went longer than I was thinking, but I think Wood is really strong overall, even the characters that I didn't talk about here. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.